Welcome to Standing Up. It seems like the average Palestinian's only experience with Israelis would either be a soldier or a settler, none of which
or somebody
truly treat them with respect and dignity. And I'm not speaking bad about any soldier or settler individually, because once you actually meet soldiers and settlers, you actually see that they're human beings. Some of them are some of the kindest people you will meet, but
there's no way I could understand that. Like
Right.
I live in Shafat, and all the arable land that's around us, you have to understand Shafat is a peasant village. We're a village where all the main families have always been peasants. So to take away our land, it really does mean something for us, as does most of the Palestinian population. So for me, a settler, like when they when they first came in to settle, the settlers, they were mean. They were horrible. We weren't allowed to go onto our lands. They were throwing rocks at us. They had weapons. There is nothing that exists, or no factual evidence. Okay, because I like to go by what I see, not by what people tell me, to show me that a settler is a good person because of what was done to us, and it affected us greatly.
Right.
Because because the way that we don't go get mortgages, and we don't go take out loans to like for our kids to, like when they get married or whatever. We build. We have extra land. We go onto that land because this land was passed down to us from our grandfathers, and on that land we build for our children. They've taken away the land that my children would have built a house on.
Right.
And they took away the option for my family to expand.
And your experience here is not individual. Many Palestinians have experienced something very similar to what you've experienced. I think we're actually getting at something quite interesting, because my experience with settlers, I consider them some of the kindest people I've met, but it says something about in-group, out-group mentality. So, right. And we've seen this all throughout the world, throughout the ages. Some of the kindest, everybody has an in-group and an out-group.
Right.
So
right.
You could be super compassionate and kind to someone who's deemed your in-group, and then treat your out-group like complete trash. Right. So my experience with settlers and soldiers is these are super nice people. But here you are with a completely different experience, you being on their out-group, and you say they've treated you like garbage.
Right.
So I think it's powerful that we can see that difference, that you and I can sit across from each other and see how differently the same people treat one another based off where they're from. And I'd say there's something very similar amongst Palestinians. So many Israelis would say they haven't gotten good treatment from Palestinians, or hostile vibes, they could say. But right. Those same Palestinians that might be hostile towards Israeli are probably some of the most compassionate and friendly people you will meet if you're in their in-group. So I think
I'm absolutely sure of it, because I've seen some of these people out of uniform and they act normal. And when they don't necessarily think I'm quote unquote Arab or Palestinian, and when they do find out I'm Palestinian, I see the the switch. So when I'm speaking my good American English, they think that I'm an Israeli who made Aliyah. And then when I'm like, I did not, and you see this switch. And you see, like, with institutions like settlers or settlements and the IDF, I see them as huge barriers to making the necessary connections. Because again, when you bring up soldiers, we don't serve in the IDF, and there's no way we would, because the IDF to us is the occupation. 60% of their operations are in our neighborhoods and on us. We do not see it as a protective force. I do not feel protected when IDF is in my neighborhood. Um, and I mean, I can relate incident after incident where their presence has meant my or whoever's in my community their danger. Settlements, I do not see them as developments. It's not it's everybody like when I see a lot of Zionists talking about, they're talking about them like they're subdivisions, and they're not. I mean, they're taking away property. This property, like the ones around my village, we paid taxes on those. We've been paying taxes since the Ottomans on those properties. So for
Right.
you to be invested, the zoning, like Ramot Shlomo, which is right next to us, we did everything under the sun to try to save it. And we've actually been doing it since the Ottomans, trying to save that land, because we have. There's a lot of stories about how the family would try to avoid paying taxes on it because we didn't like paying taxes to the Ottomans. So there was a lot of paperwork done under the table so we could hide who the actual owners were. And then the British came, and then the Jordanians came. We actually had, there's also land here taken over by the Jordanians. And we protested the exact same way. My grandfather was put in jail for protesting the King's Palace that is on land by Pisgat Ze'ev. So just we do not like foreign entities because I guess another thing I'm trying to point out, it's not necessarily just because they're Jews, is we see it as people stealing our property that
Right.
we've invested in and taken care of.
Right. I think you make a very important point, because a part of the narrative amongst Israelis is that Palestinian nationalism is a direct result of Israel's existence, and its purpose is to destroy Israel because Israel is a Jewish state. But there are signs of Palestinian nationalism prior to the Zionist movement, the Zionists returning to Israel at the end of the 19th century.
Right.
Like you mentioned, they were protesting the Ottomans and the Jordanians. So you come from one of those families that has been part of that Palestinian struggle prior to the
Yeah.
days of
My
Israel.
I have my dad's brother, like he died as a result of injuries from being incarcerated by the Jordanians. My uncle used to print leaflets against the king, and my uncle was a communist, and they're usually pretty anti-monarchy. So, and he also recruited and had meetings against the monarchy and for Palestinian freedom. He owned his own printing press, and he was eventually smuggled out of here to the U.S. Um, See, I'm third generation Palestinian. My grandfather was there, came back, raised his sons here, and then we went back again. So the way that my uncle was smuggled out was he had whatever paperwork from his father, smuggled out of Palestine to America.
Interesting.
Again, no, it did not start because the Jews. It started because again, stolen property, people being expelled from their homes, and the same thing we had seen. The Jordanians weren't as brutal. The Jordanians did not expel us. The British didn't do well, and I mean that's pretty well documented. The intifadas under them. My family also took part in those uprisings too. And against the Ottomans, our family is known for not letting I don't know what you call them, the Basha. A Basha is like an overlord, and we never let them take over the land. So every
Interesting.
time like somebody would try to come take over Shafat, we'd kill them. So
Interesting. So it's been, you come from a village with a lot of pride and a long history of, defending that land.
yeah,
Okay.
because it is said that Shafat was at one time. The Shafat is the shortened version for the King Yehoshaphat. He was a king here, and this was his kingdom. So
Mm,
we were, yeah. So